Earth.
Blurry.
Imaginative.
Dwindling.
Immobility.
A lucid invalid waiting.
Everything was foreseen.
Clockwork has bad luck.
Space and time.
Massacring.
Make yourself at home.
Encroaching.
Distance.
An aimless horizon.
Layers.
Her first living cadaver.
Count them anyway.
Mauve.
Universal.
The past of a rooted species.
Flowing in a straight line.
Omnipresent. Quantum. Sheep.
zero movement.
Agitations.
Destiny.
They're two human eyes.
Future.
Stashed away safely.
A life as it should be led.
Undifferentiated.
Progressively or quickly.
Truncated.
Ordinary.
The shrink-wrapped dreams.
Count them anyway.
Nonetheless,
A real woman.
watching the future arriving.
Properly fucking you.
Traffic is born at one point
And then, generally speaking, dies at another point.
with no apparent relation between the points.
And so you observe from behind the window in your room
How almost zero movement occurs among the people.
in their containers, even the noise they make itself reduced pretty much to nothing.
By your own container of aluminum and plexiglass.
And by the echoes of your body.
You open your mouth to shape a delicious word,
But talk to no one,
not even alone.
especially not alone,
For that matter, because at that point, why exhaust yourself?
by opening it anyway.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is, like a sickness.
That you were born with, and will no doubt also die with.
And maybe even in the same place.
Or more or less, anyway, who cares?
All this feeling truncated by an event so ordinary.
Like for instance here,
Fill this blank yourself.
as you wish,
Go on. Make yourself at home.
life is not really as long as all that.
When in fact, each individual element is not as filled with vibrating emptiness.
As each head is in its container.
In that row right there,
In front of you this morning under a sky more mauve than anything.
natural on this earth.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, It is not like it can do anything else.
Exactly as you were not taught in school.
Not in any way, but as you know now.
Body after hard body on the moving walkway at the airport destination.
The waiting, yawning chasm in the fabric of space and time.
And there you go.
Crash. Bang.
Hello.
You have arrived somewhere.
You have a head as well.
And it has been filled and prepared and fine-tuned somewhere.
Which now seems to you as mysterious as the simple pleasure of a fuck and its relation.
Narrow as it may be to other lives, its apparent lack of simplicity, its hours spent in a sort of waking coma.
Watching, for instance, vehicles passing.
By your interest level, it's virtually zero.
Exactly, as you were not taught in school.
Not in any way, but as you do now.
As a result of your imitating others.
Like any self-respecting child on Earth.
How, well, pretty much.
The Earth does what it can.
And anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
Yes. Very good.
You
have understood.
What are you to do with your head and your body?
When they are not occupied with performing some specific task and are as free as the earth.
You open your mouth to shape a strange word, but
talk to no one, not even alone.
You turn on a screen and watch the images going by.
To learn more about some there.
Where there probably isn't much there anymore to understand, really.
When you think about it anyway.
You make yourself a warm drink.
Or a cold one.
That you either drink
or not.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is like a sickness.
Like, for instance, here, fill this cup yourself.
As you wish.
Go on.
Make yourself at home.
And time flows, too, from its rather mysterious source.
Flowing in a straight line toward the same, basically inevitable end.
With an encroaching slowness, attaining little by little an immobility.
Both sad and ordinary.
When you look at her
sitting there in front of you.
You wonder what really passes.
A scene without apparent interest, as they say in passing. Like watching a coat of paint dry.
Behind her pretty eyes, whose color seems to change according to her humors.
If that word works.
You wonder, and the question is stronger than you are.
What is the real difference for you?
No, not as much as for her.
Between this purchase and the fantasy of paying for a luxury full-time ministration.
Or for that matter, finding some chick with some out-of-the-way place and marrying her, but without, as it happens, running the risk.
In principle.
That one day she'll attempt a coup d'etat.
Taking the reins, then the money, then everything else.
Properly fucking you, as they say.
Reducing you to an invalid, bedridden senile.
But no, on the contrary, everything was foreseen and programmed.
To make her evolve even better than a real woman truly in love.
Progressively or quickly if necessary, an innovative lover, not too much so like a nurse.
Look at that. Your gaze seems more and more lost in the distance of an aimless horizon.
A nurse, then, who would be professional, and such not too much in her infinite tenderness, going altogether beyond the simple desire.
For an honest job, and thus well suited for getting married without beating around the bush.
An expertly dosed madness, these sexual or amorous fantasies clinging according to your research.
Like an invalid in his filthy sheets to all layers of the population, in a manner rather diverse and varied.
But universal. Oh, yes.
To each his dreams of medical professional, as they say.
A priori, you might think the quality of any old moment would feel undifferentiated.
Or rather ordinary. For you.
Which is to say, in essence, if we said, okay, today let's go somewhere.
Shopping, say, there's nothing there to eat.
Or let's fuck, say, it's the same.
To you, there's no difference. Once your brain has done its job fabricating a relation between you and, for instance...
Here, fill in this desire. Fill in this desire yourself.
Go on, make yourself at home.
Producing, as the case may be, a carnal pleasure.
Or an intellectual one.
Or the boredom within.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it's like a sickness.
Hence, the importance for you of making the distinction
between firing off a blank round with 0 biological consequences.
And the fact that the carrot vendor no longer sells radishes.
So you know, not exactly as you were trained in school.
Anyway, not in any way, but as you do now.
You know how to imitate, how to read the difference on people's faces.
Especially on hers, anyway.
But that's not enough anymore.
Honestly, it's a matter of leading a life pretty much as it should be led.
In a dignified manner, deserving of your emotional engagement here and there.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
You open your mouth to shape a new word.
But talk to no one.
Not even alone.
You simply and without using a mirror, look at all the visible parts of your comely body.
Which, solidly planted right there, in front of the window, seems very much born of the earth.
When you undress at night, you tell yourself,
you're like a gardener, digging into the earth.
In a field pretty calm.
And orderly discovering in so doing.
A world both intriguing and ordinary.
Made up of stratum after hidden stratum.
Filled with the living and proliferation of every other body.
More or less animal or mineral essential.
Or maybe harmful to the greater good sometimes. And somewhere you open your mouth.
To shape a vegetable word.
But talk to no one.
Not even alone.
And anyway, what they bring in and what they take away.
It's all basically the same.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it is not like it can do anything else.
And when you put the tip of your finger here, say...
How do you create a relation?
Between what happens here and what you feel.
If then instead, you were to put yourself there.
Like, for instance, here.
Fill this space yourself.
As you wish.
No. But make yourself at home.
Because as you dig with your mind's eye, you get the impression that you are pretty much infinite in your layers.
Layers that open and layers that close, each one after the other in your flesh. And all it hides beneath.
It's like the sidewalk of your dreams, but anyway...
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is, like a sickness.
Exactly. As you were not taught in school.
But in any way, but as you comprehend it now.
At the ripe age of 3.
And God knows how much more behind you there is 0.
0 way to count them.
Such a calculus is not done.
Will not be done, decidedly not.
At first it was easy, but increasingly when you see her...
You don't know what to say.
You form a few words, various and diverse in your cortex, just to weigh them, then see.
It's either like she can read your every thought, or like even the simplest notion
passes away over her head in such an unexpected way
that at a certain point it becomes rather difficult to find a register of language.
Or more like an experiential register of life.
That works with what you know about her and her pre-programmed genome.
And the object of your research, to learn that her exposum is doing with it at this moment. In other words, a you aspiring to be hers.
But unlike yours, unlike the people like you, hers travels and sails along without of any real plan.
Certainly without taking advantage of the past of a rooted species.
Of the luxury of her memory.
At once physical and also, above all, running the gamut of emotive epiphenomena, going from a love life with an illusory future.
To the illuminated thinking they have found their way.
Look at that. Her gaze seems lost, more and more in the distance of an aimless horizon.
Yes, almost like a cat, say, who must remember, or rather, must recreate with every new day.
The reason for its existence and renewed daily routine, or what the hell, like a young nurse looking at her first living cadaver, realizing too late she never learned in school how to properly reinsert a soul into a body.
Without leaving behind after effects that will fuck up the future, truly.
So then we must start with the present, followed by the past.
Or is it the contrary?
So you move step by step,
Toward the bathroom,
putting your glass half drunk
or maybe not.
on the table, and you savor more than ever
The sensation of your feet on the earth.
through the parquet floor and go execute a mostly physical operation.
Whose interest level is precisely 0.
From a physical standpoint, but which does fulfill a human function.
Psychologically reassuring, because so deeply ordinary, exactly as you were not taught in school.
At all, but as you do now.
Establishing as it is meant to a more normative report.
Between your mind and your body,
The city does what the city does.
that's how it's like a sickness.
Working in such a way that everything that does not appear to you human
Winds up somewhere eventually in the deepest circular waste bin of your memory.
innermost before being buried alive anyway,
You open your mouth to shape an invented word,
but talk to no one,
not even alone,
somewhat like a sadistic plan.
in which you gradually teach, say, a dog to imitate.
Day in, day out, everything its masters do so, that finally, even though its dog life remains the same,
It comes to believe it is a man.
or its own submaster species,
And then, pretty much,
the earth does what it can.
and anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
Like, for instance, here,
Fill this destiny yourself.
as you wish,
Go on, make yourself at home.
and your life from then on.
Well, you would live it like there were no verifiable relation that could even theoretically be established.
To the backup database, just sitting in that closet over there.
Among his various collections of family photos and pop albums and porno films left to accumulate there,
One on top of the other, in a mess with no apparent order.
as though it made not a whit of difference between you now and your starting point.
But nor was there any relation between him and his own fantasies.
And ghosts
And the people.
who put them on this earth.
Like, for instance, here,
Fill this image yourself.
as you wish.
Go on.
Make yourself at home.
You try to imagine a life where the appeal of sex,
And sexuality is reduced to 0.
the earth does what it can.
And anyway,
It's not like it can do anything else.
and where people do not spend so much imaginative energy on, a pleasure that is often ordinary, and in your particular case has no lasting effect on life.
Or the future. Or pretty much exactly as you were not taught in school.
Not in any way, but as you do now.
Because in your existence otherwise,
So well thought out. Clear limits have been established all the same.
like in particular the fact that the possibility has been granted very wisely to this body to do more or less everything.
In a well-imitated manner, besides have a life growing within.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is, like a sickness.
You open your mouth to shape an infantile word,
But talk to no one,
not even alone.
which right away creates this little difference.
That rambles a bit, not unkindly, and then goes somewhere.
Far away. Very, very far away.
On the curiously reassuring path toward becoming something entirely
Different. Anyway.
to the point where now sometimes you don't tell her your desires,
But actually the contrary.
though not at all the way some people like you sometimes do it,
Which is to say not on purpose.
and even out of a sort of conscious, almost abiding refusal.
To express truly the most honest and identifiable desire at the bottom of their soul.
Along with all that passes through it when the avatar of their practically unspeakable fantasies appears.
Before their two human eyes, properly widened like the eye of a kid, seeing an audible archetype.
Kneeling before a Christmas tree, rather well adorned in appearance, but nonetheless sad.
Because of all these shrink-wrapped dreams. Or say a nurse.
All too human, before her nth bedridden invalid, vaguely resembling a little Hitler,
And maybe if it works, ultimately,
to abrogate his suffering and above all avenge the victims of his perverted little life today.
using a technique that is fairly rapid and painless.
Though not too much according to her research.
Look at that. His gaze seems more and more lost in the distance of an aimless horizon.
Nothing at all to do with what you are doing in principle.
Because obviously for you, the game lies in chasing away the limits and their potential distortion.
Of its understanding, by way of ruse, and above all in the attachment that you show her.
And your emotions, not without the obvious risk of no longer knowing yourself.
What you are playing at in your moods, going from fake joy to genuine anger.
Both leading toward a pleasure that is kind of a luxury.
Yes, be it said in passing, pleasure never lies because it is always a lie. Yes, always a lie.
Because you feel it no matter what they say, whatever they tell themselves, alone or together.
That possible physical procreation is always a presence, be it spoken or unspoken, that floats right there in the outskirts.
Or center of their bodies when they fuck.
Yes, something that never goes anywhere.
Regardless, for that matter, of whether they are sterile.
Definitively, provisionally, chemically, physically, emotionally.
Whatever. Or not.
You open your mouth to shape a silly word.
But talk to no one.
Not even alone.
They are incapable of having a relationship independent of the presence.
Or absence of such a relation.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is, like a sickness.
No, but it's stronger than they are.
Decidedly this sort of visceral marriage with the earth.
And with everything that swirls and swarms and oozes and stands up.
And fucks and reproduces therein, like for instance here.
Fill this hole yourself.
As you wish.
Go on.
Make yourself at home.
It took a long time before you understood.
What you were feeling dripping from each one's body.
It was only after having made love with others like you that the fact of sharing zero possible physical future caught your eye.
And your nerves, as though you and it were the same.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
Exactly as you were not taught in night school.
And anyway, but as you do know now.
Which makes love. And love making for you. And probably for for all of you at once.
More ordinary and more special.
Like a depth that you plumbed alone and independent.
Of them, or
Pretty much.
According to the communal version of the story.
You read it. It has been decided by pretty much everyone all over the world.
After a great many debates and trials, more convincing or less anyway,
That everybody has the right to know his true state, just as this or that adopted, ordinary child.
the human child has the right to know, even if he does not know why he is there.
Exactly as you were taught, word for word in school.
And as you continue to follow now,
Whereas it would be feasible to act as though we all believed we were normal,
somehow, somewhere,
the earth does what it can,
and anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
and all equal under total ignorance of the futures toward which we advance, step by step.
Not unlike an old retired racehorse advancing toward the glue factory, still wearing his blinders.
All the same, you open your mouth to shape a philosophical word,
But talk to no one,
not even alone,
which suffices to make you ask yourself some questions.
about so-called human compassion, which has zero power over any idea or thing,
Far surpassing its negligible personal interest.
based only on the relation between the periodic pangs of a bad conscience.
And the short life of its poor little body.
The city does what the city does.
And that's how it is like a sickness.
Like, for instance, here.
Fill this void yourself.
As you wish.
Go on, make yourself at home.
And meanwhile, the question floats over the long term,
Like an acid rain cloud over the earth.
or stores of radioactive waste, still stashed away safely.
Distant from her daily preoccupations, but somewhere within.
You wonder how she sees the clothes that furnish her body,
Her underthings from high-quality luxury brands,
and her dresses rather average.
which you buy her not out of stinginess, on the contrary, out of taste, because they suit not only your penchant for mixing a bit of everything,
Going from absolute seduction to hormonal seduction.
but also a certain nature unto itself, which is to say, superficially, just as banal as any boring clothing saleswoman.
But more deeply possessed of a thoughtfulness without limits and a sense of sophistication greatly surpassing the purely functional or practical, and reaching
Really and truly the peak of the deliciously useless, like most of your peers walking every day on the way toward an evolution.
into a near future more and more divorced from the present, which already surpasses.
By a wide margin, the functionalities of most of them coming from a pathetic past, like you.
By a wide margin. I would like to know how to rid yourself of your phenotype,
As radically as possible.
while properly.
Look at that. More and more his gaze seems lost in the distance of an aimless horizon.
In fact, his eyes seem almost able to come sliding down along the curve of the earth.
Does she put herself in wake-up mode when she is like that? To be precise, rather, switched off?
Just like your childhood computer would cycle and recycle stupid images between sessions of research,
On the web for a soulmate or a casual encounter.
projecting onto her eyes screen a nurse,
Fading into a little girl
fading into a flower,
into an ant,
an atom,
a galaxy,
day or night,
in order to keep its kilobytes.
in just whatever poetic state of empty waking works.
From where you are sitting,
Nose glued to the lightly misted window,
head tired,
and held in your tireless hands.
eyes on the crowd.
Man, looks like an ant
Rather admirable.
in pretty much all aspects.
Hollowing, constructing, enslaving, cultivating, massacring,
Running blindly in waves in order to cover the earth.
believing he talks to God like an ant colony talks to the entomologist who discovered it anyway.
Like, for instance, here. Fill this state yourself.
As you wish.
Go on, make yourself at home.
And individually lost as a queen dethroned,
No workers or soldiers in sight.
displaced from the ordinary.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it's like a sickness.
In compensation, conscious or not.
Its architecture has become bit by bit less functional.
Growing squarely. There.
Rather like a finger lifted to a violent nature.
Instead of an indispensable shelter for the body.
Exactly as you were not taught anywhere at all.
In any way but as you see now.
Yes, it's the microscopic version, as it were.
Of total and flagrant absence of any relation.
In practical terms, between the cut and fabric of your clothes.
As considered in a vacuum somewhere.
And the protection they provide from the elements.
Their daily impact on you, dwindling to almost zero.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it is not like it can do anything else.
You open your mouth to shape a fashionable word,
But talk to no one.
but not even alone.
This kind of thought creates a sort of frisson.
That runs over you, but you imagine not to tremble.
Such agitations creating only psychic feelings.
As they are called, aren't they? Which are not the same as a brand new admission.
That you find rather curious.
And yes, somewhat troubling all the same.
As though in spite of all their attentive efforts.
And or not in of their various investments.
In the conception of yourself.
And of its carapace, there are always some signs.
They do not register as though during your long conception.
The only frissons that counted for them were pretty much.
You open your mouth to shape an emotional word.
But talk to no one.
Not even alone.
Just the ones that come from your actual erogenous zones.
And nothing any less down to earth.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it is not like it can do anything else.
Or is it up to you to learn to identify them better?
And then direct them anyway.
Zipping up a little or a big childhood.
As you can manage in a learning time of basically zero.
Like, for instance, here, feel this frisson yourself as you wish.
Go on, make yourself at home.
And apparently babies cannot control their nervous systems.
One arm goes one way.
And the other somewhere.
Totally different.
When they are surprised.
By an emotion or some noise.
Or just something utterly ordinary.
Before looking frenetically at their own hands.
Without mastering or even understanding the mechanisms.
Of each relation.
The city does what the city does.
That's how it is like a sickness.
Exactly as you will never learn.
No, never. Being a mother. Yourself, but as you grasp now.
And you will learn only very slowly the relationship.
Between their spirit, located for some time now there. Behind and between their eyes.
Which are still creating a blurry, pixelated image of the world and their body.
It's time now to stop turning around like an imaginary electron.
Namely, a thing that works neither for our respectively quantum or relational souls,
nor for a putative relation of genuine luxury.
Capable of succeeding otherwise.
Why bother?
Why not remain as much a slave to each new day?
As the moon or peasant eyes, sunken into sleep clothes.
A mess.
You, on the contrary,
See clearly.
as a lucid invalid,
Waiting for the arrival
clockwork as bad luck,
of the nurse on the night shift,
and her attentions to the credit card,
per her means and desires,
going from the little death
as they say.
to the life-size.
But this morning, perhaps,
Your research will turn up something.
to touch her at the core of her being,
That is to say,
where the mechanism loses itself.
in a great cloud of kilobytes.
A concept that ultimately remains rather vague.
To you, well, can she be moved more easily? With words?
In human tongue or without.
Look at that. His gaze seems more lost in the distance.
Of more and more aimless a horizon.
This is maybe not the moment to shake him out of his tally.
Of omnipresent quantum sheep.
So you leave her in the void.
The void that keeps blinking in her skull lest she sink truly into the emptiness
Of the gluon-free soup of particles.
of abstract thought that does not, properly speaking, have anything more to do with feeling or memory or notions.
Recognizable in a customary way that reptile consciousness endures.
Always frolicking like a dinosaur,
Deep down in the deepest depths of you.
you let the moment pass
And then you watch through the window.
as the morning traffic passes.
You look at one end, feeling with the other.
The springs barely hidden on your body.
For instance, the exact points in your fingers.
Where your nails grow an attentiveness of the same kind as the regular and basically uniform growth of your hair.
Generated according to your research here.
Just above the nape of the neck,
Giving you a feminine figure.
and you warmly wrapped within exactly as nobody explained it to you.
At all.
At the hairdresser.
But as you know now,
Imagine how your life would be.
if hair were like clothes,
That you changed.
or did not,
The city does
what
the city does. And that's why it's like a sickness.
you put a piece of chewing gum between your lips,
Which it strikes you like pretty much any other kind of food.
that is humanly edible,
Or not.
has for you absolutely no relation.
You open your mouth to shape a learned word.
But talk to no one,
Not even alone.
to your physical or mental energy,
Or the state of your soul.
or your general and ordinary well-being,
And certainly not to a bodily growth.
requiring a fuel like manure on the earth,
To grow these species of walking plants.
not unlike the wild grasses of long ago.
Lost somewhere.
The earth does what it can,
And anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
like for instance,
Here, fill this stomach yourself.
as you wish,
Go on.
make yourself at home.
But can it be that serious?
If there's only one thing that doesn't feel right anyway,
In the grand metaphysical scheme of things,
these all have a weight.
equal, almost, exactly, to zero.
And now you wonder, does this flood of words come from an energy level almost down to zero?
In what one could vulgarly but not at all unreasonably describe as the battery of your body.
Which remains a restraint that could not be realer,
On your physical autonomy.
and thus mental anyway.
Like a dog's leash,
More sophisticated,
to be sure, but still the end result is the
the
same.
same. Like an instance.
Here, complete this analogy yourself as you wish.
Go on.
Make yourself at home.
You rest a bit,
Eyes mechanically widened.
sitting before the window.
And the human traffic still there.
The earth does what it can.
And anyway, it's not like it can do anything else.
And this cycle that evolves,
Surely,
but nonetheless,
slowly,
toward entropy,
toward the extinction of animals,
in soggy indifference,
or rather ignorance,
carefully chosen,
by the future victims.
which surprises you,
Deep down somewhere,
exactly as you were not taught in school,
not in any way,
but are figuring out now.
you can't help but imagine.
A sort of metaphorical marriage between technological imagination and the earth.
In which all beings no longer suffer.
The sad distinguishedness of the flesh.
Or sentient, or not.
The ignoble throes of synthetic matter,
And its bastard moods,
which are against its wishes.
so ordinary.
The city does what the city does.
You open your mouth, and that's how it's like a sickness.
You open your mouth
To shape a strange word.
but talk to no one.
Not even alone.
You are just watching the future arriving.
You are just watching the future arriving.
You
can
are
see it already.
taking shape.
Taking shape, or pretty much.
A new life
A new life from humanity's ashes.
to which you and everyone like you are
Or the relation.